Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. We're going to start with a quote. Our number one objective is to make a profit so we can hit our number one priority, which is to help people be all they can be. Zig Ziglar. That's what this is all about. Business, financial freedom. And we're going to talk about that today. If you're new and you haven't heard my interview with Mike Michalowicz, check it out. It's episode 2. You want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book? Go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. 80% of business owners hate accounting, and I don't blame them because they're not accountants. But you need someone to help you make good financial decisions. Many bookkeepers and accountants are not great at this. Plus, they don't think like you do. You need someone on your team to help you make great financial decisions that ensure you have the time and the freedom to do what you love. Remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. And that's why we focus on the bottom line. Our guest today is Megan Dahle, who during her corporate accounting career was approached by a business owner because he was concerned one of the partners was taking more than their fair share. After a cursory look at the books, Megan discovered that the partner had in fact taken over $400,000 out of the business without the other partners knowing. This sensitive project was the launching pad for Megan. She is now a consulting CFO who creates light bulb moments inside her clients' businesses. She makes the numbers easy to understand and, more importantly, easy to use so that her clients learn how to grow a stronger, cash-generating business that produces long-term wealth. Megan's clients go from nervously checking their bank balances to understanding their business finances to give themselves a serious competitive advantage so they can confidently build the business of their dreams. That's what this is all about. Let's learn from Megan. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Megan Dahle. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Rocky. This will be fun.
It will be. 2 numbers, people. So can you tell the audience a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I work with creative entrepreneurs who have some fear around their numbers to make sure that they're really using their numbers in a way that benefits their business.
I'm just wondering what percentage of creatives don't have a fear around their numbers.
I've yet to meet one.
And it's true. Like that. You know, from a niche specialization, I always say that is one of the groups of people who, when it comes to money, the common answers are, I'd rather curl up into a ball and cry, or that's my accountant's problem. They tend to ignore that because their focus is so different and they're so amazing at what they do that this kind of stuff is just not in their focus.
And I think a lot of them have like this inner belief that because I'm creative, I can't be good at numbers, or the language has been so convoluted to make it sound like it's hard when it's really not.
It's not. Most of the numbers that I work with for my clients are probably 3rd grade math. I mean, it's not that difficult, but I think a lot of us have been told math is hard. And because of that, I think people struggle.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And even, I mean, we start throwing around terms like depreciation and amortization and, cash flow forecasting. And it's just like, ugh, even I want to, just saying those words, I want to shut down and just be like, ugh, let's talk about something else. So I like to take all of this terminology and get it down into what's actually useful, use terms that my clients understand and intuitively get, and that way, like, oh, that big, huge, scary bear is now just this cute little cuddly kitten, and I can get my brain around that.
And that's true. I do like the accounting terms in the sense of understanding them, but I never use them with my clients. I do what you do. I translate. I put it into words that they understand and that they are comfortable with, and they're not scary, so that they have a better way to deal. A lot of times I'm like, did you look at that? They're like, no. I'm like, just send it to me. I'll tell you if everything's okay. And they send it to me. I'm like, everything is fine. Don't worry about it. Or, hey, here's what I'm seeing. is this really worth spending money on? Are you getting that value from that? And sometimes they'll be like, I've been thinking that all along, but I haven't made that decision. I think you're right. Let's make a pivot and do something different.
Yeah. And sometimes they just need that extra hand holding of, oh, okay, my intuition was right about that. Phew. Okay. Thanks. That's the confirmation I needed.
Well, I think entrepreneurship is a lonely world, and money is a taboo subject. So people aren't sharing, they aren't talking, and they don't have that second opinion. So they just kind of gnaws at the back of their head and gives them anxiety and fear. And the accountants and bookkeepers aren't the people who are helping them get over that. More often than not, they're making it even worse.
Yes. I've had so many clients come to me and say, I don't even know what I'm allowed to ask my bookkeeper. Like, what should I be asking them? Well, let's back up a little bit and make sure that your bookkeeper is getting you, like, doing the things that you need to be done, and you know what those things are and how you're going to use that information, and make sure that you have the information that you need in order to lead that relationships. I think there's a lot of people out there that almost abdicate, like, oh, I have a bookkeeper, I don't need to worry about it. And they abdicate that responsibility of being the leader in the relationship.
And they have to be the leader. And I think the other thing people need to realize is I don't believe there's a certification for bookkeeper.
No, you can get like QuickBooks certified. You can get, I'm sure there's people out there that are
QuickBooks certified means you know how to use the software. It doesn't mean you know how to do accounting.
Yes.
And that's a big part of what I do is I'm the second set of eyes on their bookkeepers and accountants. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like, could you go ask your accountant this question? Because this doesn't make sense to me.
Yes.
And they don't always know the right answers. So how did you get introduced to Profit First?
I was first introduced to Profit First. I was at a conference in Las Vegas. And being the cheap accountant that I am, always looking to save money, I put a search out for a roommate. And she came from Oklahoma. And we split a hotel room that weekend. And she introduced me to Profit First. And long story short, about a year later, I was running my e-commerce business. And I woke up one morning and our business had turned upside down overnight. And the cost to acquire a customer had skyrocketed by a factor of about 3, and the orders had just dropped to about 25% of what they were. I mean, we were just upside down immediately overnight, and I was for a week, a month, curled up in the corner trying to figure out what to do. And there on my bookshelf, like in the movies that you see where the answer is like focused in with the camera, there was my Profit First book that Aaron had given me. And so I put on my big girl pants and I opened my Profit First book and I dug in, and Profit First essentially is what saved that business.
And I think people need to realize in e-commerce, a lot of times things are outside your control. If you're selling on an Amazon platform, Amazon's changing your selling price consistently. And if you're not aware of what your acquisition cost is, how much you paid for it, and how much you're selling it for, plus of all of Amazon's fees, it's not hard to go negative very, very quickly.
Yeah, and we weren't even on Amazon, but we were a victim of Amazon. That's when Google started allowing Amazon marketplace sellers to use their platform. It was a switch that flipped literally overnight. Once Google turned that on, a bunch of people were flooding the marketplace with all these bids in Google that had no idea what they were doing. But that affected me. So it's time to learn fast.
And I think that's going to be an ever evolving world that continues to shift. And so you have to stay ahead of it. Now, your history, though, you are an accountant, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So even as an accountant, you still needed Profit First. Why was that?
Oh, hubris. That's why. I'm an accountant. I don't need to pay attention. I'm good. I know my numbers. Oh, how the cocky fall, huh? No, I was literally in that mindset of, because I'm an accountant, if I need to know something, it'll pop its head up. I'm fine. I got really lazy about it. And because it was just a side business that my husband and I were, just kind of worked on after work, and it was chugging along and it was fine. There was no temperature check. There was no incentive for me to seek greatness, I guess, to seek better and better ways of doing business with that little business because it was just chugging along fine. It's fine.
And I think for many people, that becomes a problem because most people don't see their accountant but once a year at tax time.
Yeah.
And it's at that point that the tea leaves are read and you're already 4 months into the next year, which creates a lot of time of nobody paying attention.
Right. And well, that's another expectation too, right? Like people hire a bookkeeper and they abdicate. And well, I also have a CPA that does my taxes. And they'll tell me what I need to know. Well, no. Really, how often do you see them, and do you really want your tax person giving you business growth, future-looking strategic advice? They don't want to be giving it, and that's not where you want to be getting it from.
And that's an interesting point that I think people mix that up. They assume that that person can provide that information, and that more often than not, accountants are not business people.
Correct. Yeah. So people often go looking for either a bookkeeper or a CPA. And the gap that they're missing really is what you and I do, Rocky. We are like the small business CFO that while your bookkeeper is organizing your information, your CPA is looking backwards and trying to get you to pay as little tax as possible. Who's looking out for the future of your company? Who's looking at your strategy and your cash reserves and saying, ooh, let's go fix this. This is where you can start to feel comfortable. This is where you can start to get creative. This is the wiggle room that you have for this next strategy. That's what's really missing. And that's like unfortunate because that CFO level of information, of guidance that you can get seems so inaccessible sometimes to really small businesses CFO, that's when you have a big team. That's when you're a big business. That's where we can really help small businesses get big wins really fast.
And that's so true. You mentioned something about the accountant wanting to lower taxes. Do you think that's always a good idea?
If that's your sole objective, probably not. I live in farm country, and you would not. I can't swing this is a horrible statement. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a farmer who goes out and buys an $80,000 pickup truck to get $20,000 off of his taxes.
That's a nice pickup truck, though.
Oh yes. We like our nice pickup trucks. But I mean, think about it. He's still on the hook. Even if he's getting that $20,000 reduction in taxes, he's still on the hook for $60,000 over the life of the loan of that truck that he still has to pay for. That's still cash going outward. So if your financial team is not working together to make sure that you're hitting your objectives about cash in your pocket or your retirement or the impact that you're having on your community with your wealth that you're building, you're going to be missing big opportunities if your team isn't together.
And that's true. And if you flip that truck every couple of years, people don't realize that all the depreciation they wrote off 3 years ago comes back in that year and has to go back against the new truck. So you're on this constant hamster wheel that, believe it or not, is getting smaller and smaller, but nobody's telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks great on your tax return when you're like, ooh, I got $20,000 off for that truck. But in reality, you're not looking at the forward-looking cash flow impact of that purchase.
And that's true. On your website, you have this statement. I'd love for you to explain it. Offense wins games, but defense wins championships. What did you mean by that?
I'm really good at defense. Defense is how you keep money in your business, how you keep the cash flow going to ultimately reach your goals, right? Offense is bringing in that cash. Like when you go play a football game, the offense is the one who runs up the score. In business, the revenue in the door is running up the score. But it doesn't matter if you score 50 points if your opponents score 60. It doesn't matter if you make $100,000 in revenue this month if you spent $120,000 in expenses. The defense of business is what gives you breathing room to be creative. The defense is what gives you the impact that you're always looking for. I like to tell the story of I have a friend who lives down south, and she's originally from up here in South Dakota, and she has been wanting to move her family back to South Dakota for years. For 7 years now, she's been saying, in 3 years, we're moving back to South Dakota. In 3 years, we're moving back to South Dakota. I don't know if she thinks that it's this thing that's magically going to just happen one day, but she's certainly not planning for it. So in the defense, you are planning for what that money is doing for you. You give your money a job before it even hits your bank account. In that way, the little shiny objects, all the holes in the bucket, aren't sabotaging all the work that you've done on the offense side of your business to bring that money in the first place.
So the problem she has is that she's actually fulfilling her words, which are, in 3 years, we're going to move. Instead of saying, on January 1st, 2024, I'm going to be in South Dakota. If she put a date down and she kept saying it, she'd be moving towards it. But she keeps saying in 3 years, which in 3 years, it may happen, but that's still 3 years.
Like, we got to pay off some debt. We got to do this thing, but the debt never gets paid off, and they never do that thing because it's in 3 years. There's nothing's getting closer and creating that little sense of panic in your heart that, ooh, we're doing this. Let's go. Let's make some progress.
And that's so true. I coached soccer for years, and the one thing that we would sometimes struggle with is a lot of the kids want to play offense because that's where they think all the fun is. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. If I give up the defense, there is no way we're going to be able to outscore what they're going to score against us, because it's hard to score in soccer. I'm like, we can't give up the defense. You have to make sure that it's always strong and that it's not going against you. And I was just reading a book the other night. It's from Keith Cunningham. And Keith said, all business owners want to grow profit, right? And so what he said is, okay, there's two businesses and they both sell $100,000 in revenue and they both have $5,000 in profit. So if we want to double our profit, how can we do that? Well, the easy way is you double your sales, you'll double your profit. You could grow your sales and maybe take some economy of scale, and maybe you can grow your sales 30 or 40% and double your profit. But he says what nobody talks about is if I looked at my expenses, which in this case, it's $95,000 in expenses, $5,000 in profit. If I could cut my expenses by about $5,500, 5.5%, I will have doubled my profit. And I got to tell you, I think it's a lot easier to get rid of that vanity spending that you were talking about and cut $5,000 than it is to grow your business 30 to 100%. But nobody thinks that way.
They don't. People get married to their expenses. It's almost like the decisions that they make, they take such internal ownership sometimes of like, even though I don't use that subscription, I'm going to be using that subscription to Kajabi next month. So that one's just going to have to stay. So even when I'm going through an income statement with my clients and going line by line and looking at each one of these expenses, there's a conversation that has to take place of, okay, hold on. How is this expense serving your clients? How is it getting the outcome that you have promised your clients? What really matters? What would it look like if you didn't have this expense? With that, and sometimes the answer is it not only saves them money, but it relieves this shoulding that they've been putting on themselves. I was working with a client last week who she has a bunch of little small businesses, and The thing that is sucking up all of her time is this thing that she doesn't want to be doing. It has been her should this whole time, whereas these fantastic mission that she has in her other two business are just beautiful, but she is so bogged down by this constant expense over here. I said, hang on a second. Don't do that anymore. What would it be if you just didn't? There's some tears, and at the other side of it, and she's like, that feels so good. Can I just do that? Yeah, just don't do that anymore. It was like a rainbow had risen in the sky. Like, oh, I can get back to the things that I love. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to. So there is something to be said for not only like, yes, logically we know that that's a waste of money, but the other side is how has that expense been like tattooed on your heart and brain that it's something that you have to or should do.
And I think a big part of what I do is give people permission. The permission to say no, the permission to say, I don't need the $80,000 truck, the permission to walk away from unprofitable business. And as I look at business owners, there is a lot of unprofitable business inside most businesses. And it's being able to understand where that is and then pivoting to the profitable business. And so we talked about e-commerce and how tight the margins are. And that's a big part of what I do is when I sit down with owners, I'm like, okay, you're doing this and your margins aren't so good, but there's a couple things in your business that you are doing where the margins are 4 or 5 times better. And we start pivoting to that and start shifting your business in that direction. Because by doing that, they will grow their profitability over time with the same amount of effort. So we've only got so much effort. If we can put our effort to where we make the greatest, not revenue, but profit, that's a smart thing to do. But not everyone knows how to dig down and find that profit number. Most large companies can't even figure out their profit numbers down to the line levels. It's been eye-opening to see how that happens. And that's probably why so many businesses struggle over time.
Yeah. When it comes down to digging into that number, sometimes a lot of times they're so interwoven that you don't know that your loss leader is what's driving, your back end program that's doing great for you. But sometimes what's really neat to know, like on your expense side, on the defense side, I recently worked with somebody who I like to figure out like 3 basic numbers for people, like things that work for them. Like, for instance, one was how many people she needed to talk to a day about her business. And so she wore 3 bracelets on her left hand every morning. And then I just had her move those bracelets, one to her right hand, every time she talked to somebody new. And that way she could stay consistent and she could kind of have that meter of how's my business doing as a leading indicator, right? But for instance, for Kim, when it came to her business, what she needed to know was, well, how much can I pay my contractors? I can go sell these social media packages all day long, but I don't know why I'm not making money. And we looked at it and like, okay, hang on a second. You can't be paying your contractors 70% of your revenue of what you're bringing in. It's like, I know that, but what should I be paying them? And sometimes it's just getting that number. Once she knew that, okay, I should be charging 3 times what I'm paying my subcontractors to actually do the work. It's like, okay, I got it. I can go do that. And then she was out selling her packages for what they should be sold for, paying her contractors what they should be paid. And all of a sudden she's remarkably profitable.
It's little things, right? It just amazes me how often it's little teeny changes make drastic differences over time. And I don't think people realize that it doesn't have to be that hard.
Right. And if we can boil it down into something really simple to understand of, oh, I spend $20 on my subcontractor, meaning I need to charge $60 for that to my clients. Oh, that's what I've been looking for. When I get that, for my clients, that's when I know change is on the horizon for them. It clicks. They know what to look for. They know what to shoot for. And now it's going to start falling into place. Instead of being intimidated by, Megan, can you help me look at all these financial statements? Like, where am I going wrong? Can we look at everything in my business? Well, we can, but how about we get to the point that's going to really click in your brain of what needs to shift?
And I think more often than not, what I've noticed with business owners is they think if I buy something for $5 and sell it for 10, I'll be okay. And I think more often they need to realize if you buy something for $5, you really need to be selling it closer to 20 because there are a ton of costs that get involved in there. And we don't realize that all those costs are there. We forget about them or we never noticed that they were there to begin with. And then we wonder at the end of the month, how is it that I sold all this stuff and there's no money left to pay me?
Yeah. And then all the time that you're putting into it as well, on top of that, that just twists the knife.
And occasionally there are hiccups because the world is full of hiccups. We've got a big one going on right now, and you need to be prepared for that. And just like you faced it, somebody turned on Google and the next thing you know, there's a hiccup. And if you're not paying attention, it doesn't take long for that to grind you down and end your business. Right.
Having that wiggle room to pivot quickly and to experiment and to play without having the guilt of taking money out of your business is huge. So that's actually one of the things that I've added to our Profit First accounts for our clients is a play fund. And yes, there's a vault account, but sometimes they just want to experiment, especially creatives. Like, I just want money to experiment. And how fun is that?
And then, that's a business development fund, essentially. Like, I'm going to take a certain percentage of my business and I'm going to use it to try and figure out something new. And that's perfect. I mean, Amazon does that. Amazon is very big into trying things and understanding that they may fail. And that's okay. But it's through those failures that we iterate into success. If that's what you want to do, cool. Let's put a line item on your expenses so that you have the money to do that without blowing up the rest of your business.
Absolutely. And find those little elements of play that you can put into your business. I love experimenting. That's so much fun. And that's where you can, at the end of the day, look back at your day and go, I like working in my business.
I love working in my business.
It doesn't stress me out. I get to play. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, this is all play. So it's all fun. So one of the cool things about Profit First is every quarter we get a profit distribution. What do you like to do with your profit distribution?
Eat. We're good eaters in our family. I love to hit great restaurants. I like stocking some away for the girls for delight. We, retirement and stuff like that. But yeah, we eat.
So you celebrate, essentially.
Yeah, I go find that $40, $50 steak and enjoy it for sure.
And you should celebrate the success of your business. And I think that's something that a lot of business owners are like, they think it's an event to celebrate in business. It's not. It's a habit. With Profit First, we celebrate every quarter. It's a habit. Profit is not an event that happens, 15 years later when you sell out. It's something that should be going on all the time.
Yeah, and there's a totally different perspective there, right? When you're celebrating it, other than I have a number of clients when they start, it's always like there's almost guilt associated with taking money out of their business. And it's like, well, the business owes me anyway. And so they're using it for these personal expenses. And it's a completely different attitude than on the other side of taking a distribution and have it be a celebration of this business rather than this bitter, spent all my time here. I don't care what the effect is. I'm just taking this money to pay for my stuff anyway. It's a complete 180.
Wow. Is there anything else that we should chat about today?
Oh gosh, I could talk all day. Oh, Rocky, this has been fun. Yes, but the mental part of taking down your expenses and getting it to the core of what's actually serving your mission, That's step number one. And sometimes it takes a strong gut. Sometimes it takes somebody to hold your hand along the way. But do it. Totally do it.
And that's the biggest thing that helps my clients survive is getting their bottom line lean and mean. And then when times are good, you have the flexibility to make those decisions because you're doing it from excess and abundance. You're not stuck doing it from borrowing and going into further debt. So how you do your business in good times will determine how your business ends up in bad times. And we are all going to have good and bad times. It's the reality of the situation.
So true.
If people would like to connect with you, learn more about what you do and find you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can come on over to Megan Dahle. That's MEGANDAHLE.com. You can check out the resources that I have there, or we can even set up an appointment to talk.
Cool. And I will put that in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Rocky. This was so fun.
I put Megan's contact info into the show notes. So, who translates the numbers so you can make the right financial decisions? It's up to you to direct your accountant and bookkeeper to provide the information in a way that you understand. You also need to get updates in a timely manner with forward-looking focus. Remember, we don't want to spend $80,000 to save $20,000 on our tax return. That's not wise financial planning. We need to ensure that our revenue is above our expenses, and the bigger that margin, the better your life. Remember, profit is not an event, it is a habit. And you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful and focus on the bottom line, because we think our way to a solution versus spending our way to a solution. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me or Megan as your Chief Profitability Officer because you have your zone of genius and want to focus there. I only work with a handful of clients so they get my full attention. They are business owners who have or are growing $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. Use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar, and we'll have a right fit call to see if I can help you and we want to work together. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Let's thrive and grow. Have an abundant week.